Welcome to Catalyst for Healing. Today we are going to talk about why we're in a mental health crisis. I'm here with Justin Yannick.
Hi.
A doctor from Renewed Ketamine Clinic, and my name is Maria Lloyd, LMFT. And we have, before we start talking about this topic, we wanted to talk about a bit of a transition that we're taking with the podcast. And we're going to be moving in a little bit different direction. And I'm going to be taking over as the lead in terms of hosting it. Mm-hmm. And we'll kind of explain why, but we've had almost a year of filming.
I know.
Weekly.
I was just like, we started talking about this basically a year ago.
Yeah.
And I think in May or June is when we started.
I know.
Yeah. It was May.
It's been amazing.
Yeah.
We've really enjoyed it. And we're kind of at the end of covering everything we want about ketamine. And I have been really passionate about interviewing people around different modalities with therapy and different integrative and innovative types of treatments. So I'm going to transition the name over to Catalyst for Healing Mental Health, Innovative and Integrative Breakthroughs. And I'm still going to have Justin and David on the podcast regularly to be able to inform us of any updates in the field with ketamine, but anything else that we decide, you'd be helpful to have come back, because I love, hosting with you guys and having you on. So anyway, maybe you can share, you have something very exciting coming up in your life as well.
Oh, just a baby. Yeah. I've got a baby coming in a month. So my life's about to change quite significantly. I'm really excited for this next chapter of my life. And I couldn't be more thrilled for like where you're taking this. And like, I think it's kind of the logical conclusion to the first chapter of this podcast, right? Like we really started from the ground up. Like, what is ketamine? Like we were like so rudimentary, and then we're like, oh, we'll never run out of some basic stuff. And then we got through. It's like, man, we've answered a lot of like the common questions. And I'm just excited. I think there's so many places that you can take this, and it makes so much sense for you to really drive the ship now. I mean, you're always kind of doing it, but I think you're going to be incredible solo. You're going to get to talk to so many cool people, and I can't wait to just see where it goes and follow along, and hopefully come back here and there if you'll have me. But honestly, I couldn't be more excited for you.
Yeah, and we've been talking about it, and you also feel like your clinic is slammed, because you
added,
but also with the combination with having the baby, you were like, this is a good timing for me to step back.
I think even logistics aside, though, I think this was like the right move. Yeah. Honestly. And so I'm really excited to see where you're going to take it.
Thank you.
Cool. So let's talk today.
Yeah, we're going to talk today because this is, I think, my passion and why I want to take it in this direction is we are in the biggest mental health crisis that we've ever been in. And a lot of people are asking the question, why? And so I'm curious, what do you think is the reason?
What if I just came up with like, it's this. It's not funny, obviously, but it's like, it's so complicated. And there's, I think, so many reasons, but I think one of the most common ones that I see permeating our space in the ketamine clinic is like social isolation. And it's hard to know what drives what. Like, I don't know if the worsening mental health leads to more isolation, but they seem inextricably tied. Yeah. And so one of the hardest things in our space is like, as patients are starting to feel good, to encourage them to start to reach out and like build some sense of community, which is intrinsically hard as an adult regardless, let alone when you've been suffering for years and decades. And so I think that's a big piece of the puzzle, and I think a lot of that stems from the way our communities are starting to branch out, social media making people have this false sense of connection, when in reality you're just connecting with an algorithm and you're totally alone. And I think it's wild to me how many of my 70-plus-year-old patients, not trying to be ageist, but like are on Facebook and on Instagram and like are on all the social media. And like, that is not connection.
Right.
I think we think of it as like 15, 20-year-olds, but like, no, this goes through the whole gamut of age groups.
Oh, for sure.
I don't know. I mean, I think that's a big driver of it. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I think, again, multiple factors.
Yeah.
But we saw it worsening in COVID in particular.
Totally.
I mean, that was, again, talk about isolation, was like isolation to the max. But it also coincided with the increase in social media. I think a lot of factors. We have a lot of broken systems in our society and people aren't living in full alignment with themselves. I mean, I believe at the source of finding good mental health is figuring out who you are, what you love, the types of people that you want to be around, the type of work that you love to do. I mean, we're all so disconnected from who we are, which makes us more disconnected from each other.
Yeah.
And to me, like, that is the goal when I'm working with the client is, yes, let's work through all the trauma, but the trauma is keeping them from living authentically out of the real self. And so, I don't know, that's my kind of 2 cents.
Yeah, and I think the modern world and its kind of like its attraction to hustle culture and constantly pushing and never being satisfied and you got to keep going, I think reinforces this style of living that doesn't allow anyone to find out who they are.
Yeah.
When you're, working 3 jobs and grinding all day, having to take care of kids and all that stuff, like, how are you supposed to get a minute to have any sort of self-reflection, right? And so then what happens is, and this is what we see in our clinic, is all these patients right around retirement, all of a sudden they're exposed to this huge amount of free time and they're like, wow, who am I?
Yes.
Right? And that's a super interesting age group that I wasn't expecting early on when we started this clinic to be so prevalent, but it's so obvious in retrospect.
Yes.
And so I think, my age group, like, this, maybe let's say the 30 to 50-year-olds, we just work, a little bit of free time, family time, but work. And like, we just don't have, there's no free moment.
Right.
And that is, unfortunately shifts a lot of the mental health crises towards later, but then they permeate up and you have no coping mechanisms.
Right.
So I don't know. I think that definitely doesn't help things. But your sense, what you're describing as like a loss of authenticity or our identity, it seems so obvious when like our society begs for conformity and it rewards conformity and at the same time doesn't give you a second to figure out what your identity is.
Right.
Right? You got to, boom, make money.
Well,
and how are you going to make money if you're unique, right?
Well, and that's, we're talking American culture because I don't know if people are
can't
watching.
Speak to other cultures, yeah.
But in America, I mean, again, unfortunately, we haven't shifted away from achieve,
Totally.
and be present
Yeah.
and connectedness being the priority in our culture. And so I think we have so many broken systems reinforcing that. I know my boys are now 20 and 23, and watching them be in these educational systems that frankly haven't changed much since I was in school, focusing on, and it's gotten way worse in terms of the pressure. I mean, the pressure these kids are under to be in sports and academics and all these extra things, and then they barely get into college. So the level of their ability to play and just explore and hang out with friends is so limited.
Yeah.
And so I saw that happening at these younger ages. And then the social media adds another huge element because, again, they're making all these connections online, but they're not real.
Yeah.
And so they're feeling more and more disconnected from themselves in that process and trying to conform to what they're seeing on social media.
Yeah.
So it's like everything's pulling everyone away from being calm and grounded. I mean, I talk to people about meditation. They're like, I don't know if I can do 3 minutes. I mean, like, it's a reality.
I know that deeply. Yeah.
And that is really concerning. And so how do we as a culture, I mean, individuals are starting to do this, but value slowing down. And I mean, one thing that was interesting in the pandemic was I thought, okay, these kids that are so overscheduled, in my opinion, are finally backing away from these multiple activities that they're in and having that time with their families. And I wonder if it's going to go back. And I feel like it's almost gotten back and worse. Like a lot of these kids, because I started working with kids again and I love it. And it's like they don't have a minute from school to activity to home to homework to even like take a breath.
Right.
So that pace is just not sustainable for mental health or to build real relationships or to have any kind of sense of who you are, because you're kind of activating like a robot at a certain point.
Yeah, I think that's it exactly. And I think what we are seeing is we can't wait for the country as a whole, legislators, people like that, to institute rules to protect us. Like, we're seeing these like kind of micro communities starting to do it themselves. And I think a good example of that is like cell phones in school, right? And you're seeing a lot of these, like, it started with some small cities doing it, and then certain states are starting to do it, like restricting access to cell phones in school, Australia restricting access to social media until a certain age group, right? And I think, unfortunately, it's a bit reactionary to like, okay, we waited for a generation to get screwed before we realized, oh wait, this is bad.
Yeah.
But that's unfortunately probably how just the world works. But I think people are starting to realize, like, I can't wait for someone to save me from this this spiral. I need to like get out of it myself.
Yes.
And to be honest, like, obviously there's a lot of ways out of this, but I think, and I have a bias here, like some sort of transformative psychedelic experience, ketamine, things like that you've discussed, like psilocybin and things like that, like, can really get you out of that spiral quick and give you like a third person perspective, like, whoa, what am I doing?
Yes.
Right. And that's so difficult to get
when you're in the day to day. I know.
But once you see it, like, you can't forget it.
Yes.
Like, you're like, wow, like, I need to get out of that. And the idea of going back into that is almost offensive.
It's true.
Yeah. And I think
that's why this medicine for us has been so exciting.
Right.
Because we see people having those shifts that they're not going to even get like in the weekly therapy. They're really transformative in that sense. But it's getting them back to who they really are. And then when they see clearly, like, this isn't aligning with me, they can make these decisions to change. I mean, they're hard decisions. It might be leaving a job. It might be leaving a relationship.
Right.
But in the end, they're so much happier
Totally.
and more fulfilled because they're more connected to their, true calling.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm optimistic, honestly. Like, it's hard. I don't want to project into the future, but I feel like we are at a turning point with our mental health.
I do too.
And I think a lot of things are, unfortunately, it's too slow, but are starting to change. And I think another space that I'm hopeful for that it's going to change is going to be the kind of like the medical establishment and how it treats mental health as a whole.
Yeah.
Because right now our model is very driven towards short doctor visits. Here's your prescription. I'll see you in 3 months. Or if you are going to be working with a therapist, for many people, it's hard to find an in-network therapist. It can take them a couple weeks to see them. They're only contracted to see, 8 sessions, right? And then after that, they have to get approval to do more, which is like, that's such an insane model to think that you're going to just have everything solved after 8 sessions.
They are doing better at limiting sessions. Most of the insurance companies are now allowing much more freedom.
Doing better at like not
limiting.
Yeah. I was like, wait.
And that used to be awful.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, but I literally, the reason that's fresh in mind is I just had a patient tell me about that.
Oh, interesting.
Their last therapist, they were only allowed to see 8 times, and it's
Okay.
just. And to be honest, a part of that whole world too is like, they know that a majority of these people just won't fight it, right? And really all it takes oftentimes is just like writing another letter of medical necessity and it's done, but they're preying on these vulnerable people. And so I'm hopeful that these systems will change, right? Like, the model will incentivize doctors and therapists to really act on the ground rather than being like, oh, now you come into my world in the ER, you just had a suicide attempt and I'm going to lock you in this psych facility to protect you. And then, okay, you're not going to kill yourself. No, go back out there. Right. And it's like, this is such a crazy model.
It's insane. I mean, we've talked about how the majority of those patients end up getting traumatized by that situation. So, I mean, the other piece is the psychiatric world is going to need to shift pretty quickly. And that might take some time. But it's similar to how I think, like, people in the medical world are starting to embrace, like, chiropractic is now covered. Yeah. And acupuncture is more like widely used and people are looking for naturopaths more often. They're not covered yet, but of aware that there's all these alternative treatments that actually have legitimate merit and can help before jumping to medication. Because that's one of the things I've struggled with in my field is if you go straight to a doctor or psychiatrist, they'll write your script like immediately. Yeah. And there's not this like intravenous time of going, okay, well, if it's mild to moderate, like, we've got a lot of options here to try. Like in Canada, they write a prescription for nature and nature truly makes you happier. Yeah. And so anyway, that's hope for that system to shift a little quicker. I think it would help.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of uncertainty in that space, but I'm optimistic that it tends to get better.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine it being worse right now in that space. And I think, it'll be incremental, and unfortunately people will suffer in the meantime. But it's trending in the right direction from what I can see even in the last couple of years in this space. But I think to reflect as a whole, like, I think if I were, like, for me, truly one of the darkest times I can remember in my recent past, and we all have different experiences, was like when I finished my pain fellowship and I had this period as I was transitioning to my outpatient pain world. I just had this sense of like, oh, that's it. Like I'm done. Like I worked all the way up to the top and I went to this prestigious program and now I guess I just work in this pain clinic the rest of my life. And it felt, I think that can resonate with a lot of people, of this idea that like, this is it. I guess I just am stuck here. And it took me having one of those kind of transformative experiences to unlock this, like, whoa, I don't have to do this way.
Yeah.
Like I can do a completely different way, and like following my passions, knowing that I have, a financial safety net with other job opportunities I have, of course, is a luxury, but still like, I don't regret it at all. And there are times when I kind of wish I had like an easy job that I can just clock in and clock out. But there's something so freeing about just following what you genuinely care about.
Yes.
Which like so few people get to do that.
I know. And even if they can't, they can always do it on the side. Like that's the thing.
True.
It's like
so
as much as possible. One other thing I think, people getting away from what they're passionate about definitely is another factor. Getting farther away from nature
true. 100%.
Is massive.
Yeah.
And the fact that we continue to spend more and more time with technology rather than being outside, playing, hobbies, music and arts.
True. Yeah.
It's like those things really need to be valued more again.
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to the decline in mental health if we look at our food systems too, and the toxicity in our food. And, people are kind of understanding how important it is to eat healthier.
Yeah.
But all of those things play a big role in mental health.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I think we covered like a lot of the major points there. I think it's not any one thing, but I think if you are someone out there that is really struggling, I think the key is just starting, right? Looking at like, okay, I want to just get to the finish line and be cured, because unfortunately that's kind of like a false pretense. Really, we're all always working towards something that's out of reach.
And there's no quick fix.
Just starting. Start somewhere.
Yeah.
Whether that's being more intentional about your sleep, being more intentional about your food, exercise, seeing a therapist, seeing a doctor that can evaluate you and possibly help you, get outside, develop social relationships. Like, pick one thing and just start there, and hold yourself accountable to it. I don't know.
Yep. I think you're right. Yeah, we covered kind of the majority, but anyway, this will be our last kind of just the two of us. I'll have some more with you on and with David on, but
I'm sure.
Anyway, I'm just celebrating and grateful for the time that we've had.
It's been so lovely being a part of this journey with you, and I'm sad that this chapter's ending, but I'm really excited for where it's going.
And we'll still be partnering around clients and have our relationships. So and good luck with the baby.
Thank you. All right.
We'll see you
everyone.
next week. Bye.